Let's begin trims and connectors with some definitions. Connectors are what link objects in a design. They can be travel stitches or they can be jumps. They are displayed in design view, but not in artistic view unless the connectors are small enough to not be trimmed. And in this lettering, you can see the small connectors that are not trimmed. Remember, when you're in design view and you want connectors to show, to be sure and have show connectors highlighted. Tie-ins and tie-offs are extra stitches before and after jumps, so threads can be trimmed without the design unraveling. They are automatically inserted after any connector that is longer than 2 millimeters or after a color change. In design view, they show as triangles and circles. Trims are automatically added when connectors are greater than 2 millimeters. These are implicit trims and cannot be changed in the software. Explicit trims are the ones that you can manipulate in the software. For example, in this design, the connectors in the lettering can be removed by applying Always Trim. You change connectors in Object Properties. Let's look at some of these different settings. You first select the object or objects to apply the desired connector settings. If you want the connector settings applied to all objects, then you can use Control-A, then change the settings in Object Properties. If you want connector settings applied to only one object, then select just that object and apply the settings in Object Properties. Trim is the default. If connectors between objects exceed the specified amount, and the default is 2 millimeters, but this ranges from 1 to 15 millimeters, trims are going to occur. By selecting Trim and entering a value, you can set how that connector should be trimmed. Tie-offs are automatically added when trims are activated. This is the default setting if you choose Trim. Always Trim is designed for lettering to trim the short connectors as you see here. To activate Always Trim, select the object you wish to trim, click on Always Trim, and click on Apply, and notice how the short connectors are no longer present in that object. When Always Trim is selected, Always Tie In and Always Tie Off are activated by default. If you select Always Trim for all objects, the machine will trim in between all objects and will insert numerous trims which you do not want. This is designed for lettering. Never Trim turns off automatic connectors for any selected objects. This is used for special purposes like basting and bobbin play embroidery. This will prevent trims from being added to the design. Always Tie Off and Always Tie In are activated by default, even with Never Trim. If you're doing a special technique like basting or bobbin play embroidery, you'll want to activate Never Tie Off and Never Tie In. When tie-ins and tie-offs are activated, you have two methods of tying off. The first method inserts stitches along the last stitch, which is better for non-lettering object. The second method inserts stitches between the last two stitches and is recommended for lettering. Depending on your machine, connectors will be trimmed at 6 millimeters or at color changes. By default, Bernina machines will trim connectors longer than 6 millimeters. Bernina machines with the Smart Trim function will trim according to the machine settings. Machines without Smart Trim will cut according to the default value of 6 millimeters. If you have a Smart Trim machine, select Never Trim in the software. To change these settings in your machine, go to Settings, Embroidery Settings, and Thread Cut Settings. The default for the machine is at 6 millimeters, and you can change the default to be whatever setting you want between 1 and 6 millimeters.